Johannesburg is one of the most densely populated regions in the country, if not the most densely populated, with those concerns continuing over housing and landlessness. And we've seen in the past 48 hours or so the situation in Rabie Ridge. You were just hearing the housing MEC Lebogang speaking there, where frustration and patience really running out among the people who say they've been waiting on RDP lists, some of them for years. And it's a story that is mirrored in various other parts of the country. But now we can speak to Mlungisi Mabaso. He's the MMC for housing in the city of Johannesburg to get a greater sense of the situation. MMC, thank you so much for your time. Let's get then a brief overview of the housing backlog in the city of Johannesburg specifically. How many people are waiting to be housed?
Well, thank you very much. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to the viewers of ENCA as well. Well, the housing backlog at the City of Johannesburg is currently is sitting at 468,000. Those are the people that are waiting to be housed. But in that, you've got people within the informal settlements, some of them which are not included in the housing need register deducted because they have not made those applications, but there are people that are in need of houses. And we've got 211 and still counting the informal settlements that we have recognized in the City of Johannesburg. And you've got people staying in hostels, the hostel residents, and some of them are not part of people that are in the waiting list. And there are also people that are in need of houses. So it's 468,000 that are in the housing need register. But if you look at the number of households in the informal settlement and the residents within the hostels, then the number, it goes even beyond 500,000, even though we don't have the exact numbers when you include the informal settlements and the people that are residing in hostels.
You mentioned the issue of the housing list. The issue with those housing lists, the biggest problem is that people say they wait. Many of them have been waiting for well over 10 years. Some say since the late 90s. What is the average waiting time for a person who's on the list in Johannesburg?
Well, we've got people in the housing waiting list which applied in 1996. There are about 101,000 people that applied in 1996 alone. And out of that, you've got 36,000 approved subsidies which have not been allocated to houses as yet. So you know, if you've got people that waited for more than 20 years, so it's very difficult to provide time frames as to how long you should wait on the waiting list, because we are still battling with the backlog of 1996, and I was still 6 years old at the time, but even now, those people are still looking for houses.
And would you agree then, MMC, that that is simply unacceptable, because then these are the same people who, when they do indeed then take the law into their own hands to make provisions for housing, are told that they're acting lawlessly? But if you had been waiting since 1996 on a waiting list, you too would at a point snap.
Well, we understand the frustration, and you know, people are seriously in need of houses. Even though we might not agree to the way that they've decided to take the law into their own hands and decided to illegally occupy pieces of land that are earmarked for development, because that, by its nature, it's one subject us to queue jumping, where we have to prioritize people over the people that are patiently waiting for government to allocate them. And there are issues of resources, of course. I might not talk about what happened from 1996 up to 2011, when I was not part of government. But from 2016, when I came in as a councillor, that's when then I had come to realize the challenge that the department is battling with in terms of addressing the issue of housing backlog in the City of Johannesburg, not knowing that, 3 years down the line, I will be the MMC who will be responsible in addressing, the issue that started when I was 6 years old. But the reality of the matter is that building houses alone, will not be a solution to the people of Johannesburg. So you need to introduce various number of programs so that you are able to be seen to be working with them in trying to address the issue of a backlog. Because if we were to say people of the city of Johannesburg must only rely on the program that only seeks to give them houses rather than to provide other alternative program that is going to assist us in addressing the issue.
Well, all of that, MMC, with respect, all of that has failed. If you're telling us today that 101,000 people have been waiting for housing since 1996, it's very hard to be impressed by all the other interventions that you say you're coming up with over and above housing. The ANC was in charge, which you are part of now, was in charge in the late 90s, took power, right? Yes, you did lose power to a DA coalition at some point in recent years, but surely you should be ashamed that in 2021, people have been on this list since 1996. It's shameful.
Well, I cannot speak on behalf of the ANC because I'm IFP.
Oh, my apologies.
But what I can safely say now is that there are programs, you know, which can assist us, and those programs we have introduced already, and they are running in the ground as we are currently speaking. Because the development of houses, if you were to build a house and expect someone to be allocated in it, that process alone can take you up to 5 years. And if you are delivering or yielding less than 10,000 houses per financial year, it's like a drop in an ocean in the city of Johannesburg. So the programs that we have introduced, one is the informal settlement upgrade, which speaks to providing services where people are, which speaks to giving stands to people where they are, which speaks to giving people title deeds and ask them if they've got capacity to build houses for themselves, or after you have registered that informal settlement as the township, then you are able to provide them with decent housing. So those are the programs that we have introduced. If you go to hostels in the city of Johannesburg, there are a lot of activities that are happening. There are hostels that are under construction as we currently speak with you. If even tomorrow we are launching one of the mega projects for social housing for social housing development, where we are going to accommodate people which do not qualify for RDP giveaways and also do not qualify for bonded houses. In February Council, we approve a service stand policy as the city of Johannesburg, and that was presented by the Department of Housing, so that we are able to give people stands for them to be able to build for themselves. So those are the projects that we have introduced now, because we have realized that if we were to say our people must only wait for us to build them houses, they are going to wait forever.
And like you rightly said, and apologies for that, you are IFP, but of course you are MMC in an ANC-led Joburg Metro, and that's the point that I was making. But finally then, the big news story this week is about the situation in Rabie Ridge. We were hearing calls from some of your colleagues, a plea for patience. Have you personally been to Rabie Ridge to speak with those people there? Because they're simply not backing down at this stage.
Well, I haven't been there, but what I can safely say is that there were engagements that started last year, well before this incident, where we had engaged with the landowners, because that piece of land is the only solution for us to address most of the housing issues in Region A, particularly those informal settlements that are situated under ESCOM line. So the engagement started a long time ago. We are working with the provincial government, we are working with HDA, and we are engaging with the landowners, and they have shown the willingness, you know, to give that land back to government so that we are able to do development. So we are in those processes. Even today afternoon, as I'm currently speaking to you, there is a meeting where the department, the city of Johannesburg is meeting with the human settlement in the province, and they are discussing the very same matter. And there is a case in court that was put in by ESCOM, and we said to court, through the case management processes, we said we are going to make sure that we acquire that land. So that is even the promise that we made to court long time ago, to say we are going to acquire that property so that we are able to develop it and provide people of Region A with houses in that state. So that land is sufficient to provide mixed development, where you can even put in service stands for people who will afford to build houses for themselves, for RDP houses, for people that do not qualify for any programs of the government, which are only qualifying in terms of the Social Housing Act. You can even cater for those people. So we are really pleading with our people to be patient. We know that government processes might take long, and they are frustrated because they've been waiting for too long. But the processes and the discussions are underway, and the private land owners have shown willingness, and they are on board, and they are in discussions with us, and we are confident that they are going to give us the space for us to develop.
And for many people, it's simply unfair to be expected to wait for more than 20 years or even more than 10 years for a house, even after you've put in an application. But thank you very much for that. MMC for Housing in the City of Johannesburg, Mlungisi Mabaso, giving us an overview of the housing backlog in the city.